Welcome to Podnutz Pro, episode number 5. In this show, we like to introduce you to the world of business IT support. You know, we're taking you from the residential to the business. It is the gateway into your knowledge in that subject. And that's the goal of the show. We try to introduce you to things, and hopefully then you can get business customers, make more money, and be more versatile, be of more value to society with all your knowledge. And we get kind of geeky on the show, so hope you enjoy it. Hosting the show is Matt Rainey from ahcomputers.com, ah-computers.com. What's up, Matt?
Oh, same old Christmas week. It's pretty hectic,
Yeah? Well,
especially when you're sick.
oh, man. Then what a bummer to be sick during the holidays. I feel for you. Also co-hosting the show is Lalo Nunez, fan favorite. What's going on, Lalo?
Hey, sir, how you doing?
Awesome.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Thank you.
All right. Take it away, Matt. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, tonight I think what we'll talk about is billing, charging your customers, and how to bill, what to bill, that kind of thing.
It's always a good subject.
And not necessarily rates. We don't get specific rates, but mainly just the method and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
when you're doing business clients, a lot of people, if you're used to doing home business or home support, usually a lot of places they want to do a per incident charge or a flat rate. You know, $79 will fix your computer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, reinstall Windows, that's one rate. You can't do that with business, or it's not. I don't recommend it at all. What you want to do is just charge by the hour.
No flat rates.
No flat rates, definitely not. That'll kill you.
And this is what's expected in business too, isn't it? Anyway.
Definitely. It's standard. I mean, any business support, when people call around, because they'll do it. If they don't get referred to you, they'll call around and ask people what their rates are, and it's always an hourly rate.
Gotcha.
And the main reason for that is you go on site, and I'm sure it happens for home users too. You go on site to look at a specific issue, and you're there for hours and hours longer than you anticipated because of the one more thing while you're here. Can you check this?
Exactly.
And if you're doing a flat rate, unless you want to have some kind of special for the day, here's my rate for the day, which I don't do that either. But I've as long as it's going to cover your time, hourly is the way to go. It's just too many things that can go. And if you're doing per incident, you have to keep track of, okay, I fixed his printer issue. I fixed their issue with some kind of autocomplete in Word. You know, it can't. The businesses, first of all, it's going to be way too much money if you start adding all the per incident charges.
Right.
So some businesses, if they've never had computer support, may not like the open-ended hourly charge, but if they call around, they'll see that standard.
Right.
So hourly rate, whatever it is, you know, make sure that it's fair for your area. You know, some people think they're worth more than they actually are. Some people charge less than they should. You don't want to be the cheapest person if you call around, it's not going to be the cheapest.
Okay.
You want to be in the same area as everybody else, but make sure you're worth it. You know, if you're just starting out, and let's say ballpark in your area is around $100 an hour, you may go to 90, you know, but you don't want to be 50.
Right. Because then it makes it seem like something's wrong with you. Why so cheap?
Right.
And then you attract customers that gravitate towards cheapness.
Right. So if you send a bill for 3 hours, they're gonna expect a bill for 1 hour.
Right.
So you don't want to do that. Now, when you're billing, you want to be reasonable. If you're billing by the hour, if you were on site somewhere and it took you, and you were there for 4 hours, but really it should have taken you 2. You know, build a 2. You don't want to necessarily bill all 4 if it's not a valid charge.
Right.
Because when you send we'll get to that. Another thing, so bill by the hour. The next thing is if you're doing business support, it's normal to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Matt, before we go into that, I definitely want to go into that. I just have the burning question in my mind is, and you're going to say probably it depends what area you're in, but what do you charge? Like give us some numbers. What do you charge?
In our area, if I call around, it ranges from 85 to 145, 150 an hour.
Okay.
In my area.
So, but I wasn't asking you personally what you charge. That would be kind of rude, okay. I guess. But I meant like in general, what? Because I know that this is the question people are going to ask me and us is, okay, so what do I charge? And so you think that that's around a normal rate? And
that's very specific. I mean, there's no way to answer that without, if you wanted, the best way to find out is just call around a few businesses.
Okay.
Make up something. I'm looking for business support. What's your hourly rate?
Gotcha. Okay.
They'll tell you. If somebody calls me the phone and asks us that, we tell them. If they call back, they call back. If not, oh well. But usually it's referrals is what you're getting, so you're not usually gonna have that question.
Okay.
I mean, well, the people referring to you know what you're don't care what you're charging because they refer to you. They know that you're good enough for whatever you're charging.
Right.
But for you to find out, just call around.
Okay. Cool.
You also have to take into account long term because you might be working out of your house, so you may not have any overhead. You may not have an office to pay for, rent, electricity for an office. You may not have a staff. So you may be able to go a little bit cheaper, but you don't want to do that because if you grow, when you get to a place where you do have that stuff, you do go get an office, you don't want to take your customers that you've been billing $50 an hour for the past 3 years and jack them up to $85 an hour.
Right.
So plan for some future growth because the other businesses that are charging what they're charging are charging that because they already have the overhead. So if you're in the same area, you've already got that built in.
Gotcha.
Some people gripe about Best Buy rates, but if you take into account all their overhead, insurance, everything that they do, right. they're covering their overhead.
They're criminals.
I mean, it is a bit high.
You cannot make excuses for Best Buy. Well, I'm sorry.
No, I don't. I won't let you. I don't like their work.
Yeah.
But some people say, well, Best Buy's gonna charge them $300 to reinstall Windows. I'm gonna charge them $50. Well, that's a good deal because you don't have the overhead.
I know they do have a lot. I guess they do have a lot of overhead. You're right. I mean, I can't imagine it's that much. I can't imagine it's that much, especially with the amount they pay the employees.
Well, that's just part of it. So let's just say a whatever you call them guys, I forget what they call them.
Geek squad.
He's at okay. So he's at a house for a couple hours. They've got to pay him at least $20 to $40 off the top of the $300. Not to mention the insurance. Just everything goes into it.
I guess so. I never thought of it that way. I always wanted to just beat on them.
But the reason they're so expensive is because they're so big. So, a lot of people think I'm doing a favor because I'm only charging $200 to reinstall Windows when they charge $300. Well, you're really not doing that much of a favor. Yes, it's cheaper for the end customer, but you're just charging $200 to charge $200.
Mm-hmm.
They're charging $300 because they really have to.
I don't know.
But
I understand what you're saying.
I still don't recommend them. I'm not recommending them. Let's be clear.
I know.
I'm not recommending them. But
I don't want it to seem like poor little Best Buy has to charge so much because of all the over. They're making profit, obviously.
Obviously, they're definitely making profit.
Yeah.
But let's remember, when you're in business, you want to make a profit too. So the point is, you have to account for any future overhead you're going to have.
Okay.
Because you don't want to start off at 50.
Right. Because
it's hard to raise rates on customers. When you raise rates, even if it's 10%, you go to $50 to $55. They kind of don't like that. Even if it's only done every couple of years.
Right.
So don't be too cheap because you might have overhead later on.
Good point. That's a great point. That's a great point.
Just be prepared for that.
Okay. All right, you were going to talk about hours.
Yeah, hours. So, a lot of people, when they're doing home support, people are home at night and on weekends. I don't like working nights and weekends. With businesses are mostly open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, closed on holidays.
Right.
So businesses are used to you being available 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. That's normal.
Right. Okay.
So when we get a client, we let them know our hours are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, closed on holidays. Um, we don't, you have to be careful not to overpromise because you're trying to get customers. Don't tell them that's terrible.
It is. I've told the story before, but I did that when I first started my business, and then I stopped doing that like a couple weeks afterwards, but I forgot I put it on all my business cards. So when somebody called me at 11 o'clock at night and I got all mad at him, and I said, where did it say I'm open at 11? He goes, it's on your business card. I go, oh, sorry.
Right. It's hard to change from things so start off maybe conservative with things like your hours. And if they want time apart from that, that's an upsell. Work after 5. We tell them, yes, we're available. It's time and a half. And don't be afraid to charge time and a half, because they're requesting us after hours.
Gotcha.
So just don't, if you tell somebody you're available 24/7, they're going to call you after hours because they have other things to do during hours. So they'll just say, well, my computer's not working, but I'll call them at 7 or 8 o'clock tonight.
Right. Great point.
So you're going to get more work after hours if you tell them you're available after hours.
Gotcha. But they'll still call, but you're not losing any business because they will call you anyway if you work normal business hours.
Right. They'll call you. And they're not going anywhere else. I mean, it's common for these business support to have these hours.
Right.
Now, one thing you can offer service contracts. I hear a lot of people talking about service contracts. One thing that we do is with our service contracts, first of all, our service contracts are still Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Anybody who's a priority customer still gets the same hours. But with the service agreement, we can schedule after hours work at normal billing rates. So let's say I have a customer with a service contract who needs to do some work on their Exchange server, and they want to do it on the weekend.
Okay.
Well, that's fine if it's scheduled. If it's scheduled, we do it normal rates. It's not included in the retainer fee. It's additional time, but it's only charged at regular time. As opposed to somebody who was in a service agreement, they would be charged either time and a half or double time on the weekend.
I see.
So our service agreements are still 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. And you got to be careful with that, because if you're selling a lot of these service contracts and you're telling everybody you're available at certain times, if you've got 3 people calling you at the same time on a Friday night, what are you going to do?
Yeah, good point. What do you do?
Because if you can get to 2 of, you can get to 1 of them, but not 2.
Right.
So let's say these other 2 companies have been paying you for 6 months for this contract, and the first time they want to use it, they're not available. Well, that's not going to be good for you.
Right.
They're going to ask, what have I been paying for? So, be careful when you structure these service agreements, how you structure them. With service agreements, don't use that at all.
Really?
All of our service contracts are verbal.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Neat.
And we don't push them. We let the customers know they're available, but we don't push them on anybody. And normally the way it comes up is somebody's not happy with their callback time, because standard customers get put in the queue, assigned to a tech, and they get to it when they get to it. Service agreement customers get placed, well, the way we structure it is you get a 1-hour callback and 4-hour on-site for mission critical issues. So some customers might not like it that they don't get called back for 3 or 4 hours. And we let them know we have a service agreement available. And sometimes they ask about it, sometimes they don't.
Wait a minute. So the only people that get on the service contract are ones that complain about service time, essentially. That's the only way
right.
they find out about it?
Well, no. We when we get a new client, we tell them all about it.
Okay.
We say we have our standard, call us when you need us to fix something, have a service agreement, and we tell them what that means. But that's, we'll send them an email. We have an email that we have ready to send, so if they have something they can read, but there's no signed contracts. A lot of businesses don't like signing contracts for things they don't need to sign contracts for.
Is this how a lot of businesses do it? Verbal?
Um, I think for small businesses, yes.
How is it done, Matt? You just
because we're usually dealing with the owner.
Uh-huh.
So, from owner to owner, business owner to business owner, a verbal contract is good. Usually, we've never had a problem with it.
So you send them in writing all the stuff that they're agreeing to, but they just don't have to sign it. You just say, this is the agreement, do you agree? And they say yes, and that's it?
So you're not going to get a service contract from us unless you commit to 8 hours a month.
Okay.
So you're going to pay 8 hours a month. You get a reduced rate if you sign 8-hour blocks, and we spell out what they get. And what it does not include is more importantly. And we let them know you'll be getting a bill from us for whatever the amount is, however many hours you choose. Overages are billed at the same hourly rate for the service agreement. It does not include after hours work, but after hours work can be scheduled at the additional service agreement rate. Okay. So on top of the 8 hours, you'll get billed for that.
Gotcha.
And it's just an email. Because we don't want if they're not happy with it, they're free to cancel it that day.
Gotcha.
Plus, it gives us an out, because it's more common for us to fire a client than a client to get rid of us.
I see. So it's better for you to do it this way.
It's better for both. They're free to go. They don't feel like they're locked in. People get tense when they sign contracts for things.
Yeah.
Now another thing I've seen is certain ours is 8-hour minimum. I see a lot of people talking about they've signed a retainer client for 2 hours a month. In my opinion, I think that's ridiculous. I don't know how you can have a priority customer who's only using you 2 hours a month. If you're doing a lot of work, 2 hours a month for my company, you're one of our smaller customers.
Right.
So I can't promise you a 1-hour callback when you're calling for one issue a month.
Gotcha.
So you have to be careful how many priority customers you have. Now, everybody can't be a priority customer.
These customers that are paying for 8 hours a month, I guess you don't always do the 8 hours. You don't need to do the 8 hours. It's probably rare that you do 8 hours, right?
We usually the ones that go for this with the 8-hour minimum we can look back in our billing and show them you've used so many hours in the past billing cycles. Okay. So usually they use it.
Okay. I see.
But 8 hours is a minimum. So if somebody's like it's 6 or 7 hours a month, they may, or even 5, because they get a price break to go for 8. So it might be the same, and it's good for their budget.
I see.
I have a question. As far as the 8 hours go, in the event that I own a business and I don't really have that many issues for that month, do you offer like maintenance, like we do virus scans or check the health of your network, or we check on your server or whatnot? Or do you offer a service like that also?
We do have agents that we can load on the servers and workstations that report back any issues.
Okay.
Even issues with the server as far as the hard drives, the memory, anything that's alert in the event logs, basically,
I got you.
We can be alerted to. And also for bandwidth monitoring we can do. There's different things that are included with that service contract that are not just us showing up and fixing things. So there is some preventative stuff in there.
Yeah. That's a good point, because it makes you look good as a company when you say, hey, when you call the owner, hey, like your hard drive is almost full and we need to take care of that situation. That makes you look good because you're being proactive, not reactive. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they like that, so, and actually the software we use, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it generates nice little reports that we can just email to them too. So
great.
They get an email once a month or so, and just with a report. Now, I'm sure they just delete it, but they get it.
Okay. And I had another question about the verbal contracts. Are you, how are you held responsible legally if I had a lawyer's office and, God forbid, you partitioned my hard drive by mistake? If there's a verbal agreement, how would that work? Like, as far as if I attempted to take you to court, and I'm just asking a question here, just out of curiosity. That's all.
Well, the verbal thing is just for the contract. Meaning, if we send them a bill for 8 hours a month, they understand why they're getting that bill and what it includes.
Oh, okay.
You know, it includes certain callback time, it includes certain response times from us. But even the work orders, we don't have work orders that we have customers sign when we go out. When they call us, they open a ticket, it's in our system what they're calling for. But when we send texts out or when we go out, we just show up, talk to the office manager, talk to the person who called, fix the problem, and leave. We don't have them sign anything there either. That's all verbal.
Cool.
Now, some people, you know, again, have forms where they say, I was here for this long, this is what I did, sign this. Because it is pretty common when I go to a new customer's office, they ask me, do I need to sign anything? I say, no. And they're kind of amazed by that. But, you know, it's just more overhead, more paperwork. And we've only had a few issues where somebody didn't remember something. But we have it all in writing. We have their call logged. We have the date and time that we went out. And we've never had somebody not pay for that reason.
Oh, okay.
To where they forgot and didn't want to pay, well, then we just wouldn't work for them anymore. Because, you know, you have to, it's a trust thing. They have to trust us. We have to trust them. And if it's not a good business relationship, we're just going to sever the ties. So if they're constantly complaining about our bills, saying, I don't remember this, I don't remember this, then it's just best to go have them find somebody else to do their work. It's not worth our time.
I agree with you.
We have enough to do without worrying about those kind of customers.
Right. That's smart.
Now, another thing that we recently did, not I say recently, actually a few years ago, you know, when you're doing a business support, I think we talked about before having one point of contact, to where when you go into a business, one of the things we lay out up front is you have to designate one person to contact us. And that's usually the office manager. And part of that is for billing, part of that. So if Joe goes to Mary, I can't print, Mary calls us. So the same person is calling us with the issues. Mary knows that she's calling us to do work. That means it's authorized. If Mary's an office manager, we know that work is authorized to be done because Mary called us.
Right.
If Joe calls us directly, Mary doesn't know anything about that. So if she gets a bill for fixing Joe's printer, she has no clue what that's for.
Yeah.
But if we go through the one office man or the one point of contact, she knows that was a valid call.
That could get crazy. I could just imagine if everybody in the company's calling separately.
And that happens. Get new clients. We'll get if the email is down, we'll get 50 phone calls.
And you'll just say, "Tell Mary to call us."
But yes. And then actually, if it's a new customer, we will call Mary and we'll remind her, Mary, look, you know, we need to have you need to tell your people to call you before they call us, because we're having 50 calls logged. You know, it's slowing our response time to get back to you if we have to filter 50 calls
exactly
to see if they're the same issue or not.
Exactly. And that's a good point. And what Matt is describing applies to the corporate world also, in a corporate environment where you have multiple departments, 20 or 30 or 15. One person is designed as the technical lead person, and that's who works with the IT department. Because what Matt is describing, you avoid 25 the phone calls that the server's down. So
right. And for the billing too is important, because if you know, usually we know the person calling in very well, you know, so there's no question that she called us.
That's a good point.
And plus, a lot of office managers like it. They like the idea when we bring it to them, because they know, you know, they're not paying for something that shouldn't be done.
Right.
So if Linda can't get on Facebook and she calls us, I can't get on Facebook. Well, that's might not be what the company wants to spend their money on, is getting her back on Facebook.
Exactly.
So if they call Mary can say, yeah, don't worry about that.
I want to hire Mary. She seems like she really knows her stuff.
So it authorizes the work. It helps for billing, and it helps to reduce costs to our office, is the one point of contact. That's a key thing that needs to be done that we lay out right away.
Cool. That makes sense. It's
Um,
sane. Yeah.
The billing increments, you charge them by the hour, but you need to have a policy, whatever it is for you. I mean, this is a personal choice, how to bill. Our on-site work is billed 1 hour minimum, and then in 15-minute increments. That's how we do on-site work. Driving time is included. So if I go to company A gets charged the time I leave my office to the time I get back.
Nice.
That's how we do it, because it's times that our technicians are spending, mileage, all that stuff. So
Sure.
time we leave, time we get back. Phone and remote work, we do 30-minute minimums for that. And then we do 30-minute increments for that. And that's just what we picked. You can pick anything you want, but I would say try and keep it simple.
Okay.
If you want to have 1 hour minimum, 1 hour increments, that's fine too. Just it needs to be clear when you tell your meeting with your clients, this is how I bill. So there's no confusion when they get a bill. You're only here for 5 minutes.
Right.
You just cleared a paper jam. Why am I getting a bill for 1 hour? Well, it's 20 minutes to your office. It's 20 minutes back. It's the time to do it. We have a 1 hour minimum.
Right. I mean, you definitely have to make that clear to them beforehand. But once you do, there's no excuse.
Right. And it's not. And a new client gets the email with that along with the service agreement information. So they can always refer back to that, but they're not, because they delete everything and they say you never sent it. That's common too. Another thing that's very common on a different subject for customers is they think you keep everything for some reason. I don't know why when we sell a customer a computer, 6 months later ask them, where's your CDs? Well, you kept them. No, I didn't keep them. Yeah, I think you did. I said, no, we didn't. If I kept the paperwork and CDs for every computer I sold, I have a warehouse full of that stuff. So they like doing that too. Just be prepared for that.
Okay.
Now the phone thing, we charge 30-minute minimums for phone support. That's, some customers have the biggest problem with that, because that's a fine line. If somebody calls you with these quick questions, now I hate quick questions, because there are many quick questions.
Right.
It's the answers that aren't quick. So a client calls me, can I ask you a quick question? Yeah, or they say, do you have time for a quick question? Yes, I have time for you to ask me a quick question. I may not have time to answer it, but you can ask me.
But
So-
once you say that, they're on the clock.
Oh, well, they're on the clock. So, right. And the way we bill phone support is, if it's more than a yes or no answer, you're getting billed for the half-hour minimum. So if it's just yes or no,
You let them slide.
that's a slide.
Okay.
If I have to explain something, walk them through something, definitely connect to their computer or connect to their server. Anything really over than a yes or no, that's a bill. And some clients have a problem with that, but if they question the bill, we explain to them, you called us because this is what was not working. It was working. So obviously we did something.
Right.
Just because we did it quickly doesn't make the charge not valid.
Yeah.
Because at one point we were not charging for these. At one point our policy was, if it's under 5 minutes, we're not going to charge you. But you can do a lot in 5 minutes. You can connect to their server, and you can maybe check some services or check some log files and see an issue and close it out. But you did work,
Right.
so you should get paid for that. So we switched from our 5 minute or less to, if it's more than yes or no, you get billed. And that's something that each person is going to have to figure out what they want their billing practices to be. But if you're fielding all these quick questions, your day is going to be gone.
Right. It's just constant interruptions.
It's constant. And it also limits this stuff, that if it's something silly, they'll learn to do a Google search on their own. You get calls, things like, how do I highlight some text in Word? Well, if you're going to charge them $50 for half-hour minimum, let's say, they might try and do it themselves first.
Right. Have you ever sent out let me Google that for you links? Have you seen that? You have?
I do, yeah. And usually I do that because we support some businesses that have their own IT staff.
Yeah.
And we support them. So when they can't figure something out, they call us. And that's usually what I send those guys.
That's awesome.
I don't send the customers unless I know them really well. But I have some relationships with customers that I could send it out.
Right.
And they wouldn't be offended. But I don't mind sending it to the techs that should have known to Google it before they called me.
No, most people who aren't techs, they probably would think that it's a genuine thing, that you're really helping them.
Yeah, I love that thing. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. All right.
Now, hardware. Hardware is another issue. How to bill for hardware.
Okay.
Our company's a larger company, so we just invoice them whenever we send invoices out. It might be once a month, might be once every 2 months. It just depends on when we have time for billing. But a lot of companies can't afford to float that much money out there. In the business world, I think it is okay. I don't think, well, let me go back. If we have trouble collecting for hardware from people, when they order hardware next time, they pay for it in full before we order it.
I see.
So if we sent them a $10,000 bill for hardware and it took them 6 months to pay it, well, we have net 15. I mean, you get a bill, you're supposed to pay it within 15 days, not 6 months.
Right.
So the next time they want to order hardware, we send them a quote, and when they approve it, we'll say, okay, we'll order it as soon as we get the check. And if they ask why, we'll just say, well, we had issues collecting on this last time. That it was 6 months overdue. And they usually don't complain about it.
Right.
Then.
They knew they did bad.
Oh, yeah, they knew. Because they were getting calls from our collection person after 90 days for months and months.
Right.
So it's okay. I mean, if the company is going to be buying from Dell or HP directly, they're going to pay for it before they get the merchandise. Front the money for the computers yourself. You can always just have them order it through Dell or HP.
Right.
Or you can require a deposit up front, 50%, 100%. That's okay. So don't be afraid to have them pay for the hardware up front if that's what you want to do. That's that's not unusual.
Okay. That's good to know. It really is.
Now, let's say I was a single man operation, I would probably go, if they wanted computers, I'd probably go to their office, pick out some computers online, buy them right there, let them pay for it, and I would just charge them a consulting fee. That's what I would do if I was a single man operation, more than likely. I don't want to be building computers.
Right.
That takes up too much time. That's not what I want to do.
Sure.
But that way, at least you get paid something. You're doing a consulting fee. They get some computers that you've approved, that you're sure you're getting the right thing, or they're getting the right thing. And a consulting charge isn't bad for that kind of service.
Sure. Yeah, you're approving it. You're just not building it all.
Yeah, because otherwise, what's going to happen is they're going to build a shopping cart with Dell, and they're going to send it to you. Can you look at this?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it, and you say, that's fine.
Right.
Then they reply back, what would you do different? And this leads into a stream of 20 emails over and over, and it's eventually going to turn to phone calls anyway, and all that you really can't bill for. So that doesn't happen to us too much, but I know that it happens a lot just from family wanting computers.
Right.
If a customer sends me a shopping cart from Dell, I'll tell them it looks fine. If I think it looks fine, I don't care. I don't even look at it.
He doesn't even look at it.
But if they ask any more questions, I'll make a quote of my own and send it to them and say, here's a quote that I approve. If you want to order it, let me know.
Right.
And it has the specs on it. The same specs that Dell card has. I try and put the same specs so they can kind of see. And if they continue emailing back and forth, much. It's only happened a few times. I'll tell them, look, you can compare the specs I sent to anything online. What I sent you is what you need. If it's more or less, it's up to you. And they usually end up getting it from me anyway.
Right.
And 99% of the customers buy stuff through us, which is the way we want it to be done.
Right.
Because if they buy it online, they're going to get the wrong thing.
Makes sense.
Or they buy it at Office Depot or Best Buy. It's always wrong. And when I show up and they have the wrong thing, say, what can we do? I say, well, if you have the receipt, go return it.
Restocking fee.
Yeah. It's either that or if they bought XP Home, you got to pay for the upgrade to XP Pro.
Right.
So either way, they're going to get the wrong thing. It's going to cost them more money. So once you have all these bills, another thing, when you have these rates, you can't expect in most businesses, when you go do work, you do the work, you can't expect usually to leave it with a check. And a home user, you're going to definitely leave with the check. But businesses, they usually don't cut checks right there, usually. And because they usually have an accounts payable department, somebody to approve that. So you send them a bill, they have to look at it, they have to approve it. Somebody cuts a check, somebody signs a check, they send you a check. So in business, it's normal to send them an invoice and get a check, not get paid when you're there.
Okay.
So be prepared for that when you're starting to do business support.
Be prepared to not walk out the door with money in your hand.
Right.
Gotcha.
There are instances I think I've talked about before where we have trouble collecting. In that case, it's different. I tell them we'll do work for you, and if they're behind, if they're 90 days overdue, and they're calling me for work, we'll tell them we're fine to do work, but when we get there needs to be a check for the past due invoices, and a 2-hour check to cover the first 2 hours we're there.
Gotcha.
But that's a special case because that's a collections issue. But normally, we're going to send them a bill. They'll send us a check.
Makes sense. Sounds good.
I have a question for you. Since you have technicians part of your team, do you do most of the talking with the customer? Or is there a person doing all this conversation so the technician really doesn't have to have any interaction in regard to the billing?
Right, the billing. Right. Our techs know if they have a question about billing, they just say you need to call the office and talk to one of the partners, or talk to the billing department. They're not supposed to answer any billing questions.
Okay, good.
And that's, before I made partner, I loved that, just shoving it off. Because dealing with billing and money is one of the harder parts about owning your own business. It's a touchy subject. Some people are afraid to ask for money. They're afraid to get what's due to them. So when I was just a tech, when I first started, somebody asked about billing. I said, "Oh, you have to call the office to talk to so and so."
You don't even have to confront the issue.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I think this show's going to get a lot.
It.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think this show's going to get a lot of attention, because billing is a huge button with techs, I think. So it's a good subject.
Yeah, and normally, another advantage to the tech, to us, is when I have my billing, I'm going through my billing. We review each work order. We have a work order system that, from time the call comes in, all the notes, the resolution, how much time was on it. We review every single work order before sending a bill out. So if one of my techs, and we tell our techs, put your actual time. If it took you 12 hours, put 12 hours. We go back and we review every work order and every entry to make sure these are valid charges. So if a tech has 12 hours on something, it depends on what it is. Let's say he was cleaning up a virus and he had to go pick it up and he had to clean it. Then he couldn't get it cleaned all the way, so we had to reinstall Windows, and then he had to bring it back. You can't charge 12 hours for that. So we may put in the bill, spend 12 hours only charging 7.
Okay.
So when the customer gets it, they'll see, oh, well, they spent 12 hours and they only charge them 7. Oh, I got a good deal.
Right.
So we put that detail in there. But if we put 7 hours on that bill and the customer gets it and they don't like that bill, they're going to call and say, why is this bill 7 hours?
All right.
So you've got to be prepared to defend any invoice you send out. You've got to be prepared to defend it.
I see.
So before sending it out, make sure it's fair. Make sure it's all valid time. So when they call, you can go look at it. And you might miss one or two. So they're going to call us and say, look, we had to go pick it up. That's an hour minimum. And if they say, why is that an hour minimum? I say, well, it took me an hour to go to your office and come back. Bring it to us, or do you want us to come, a tech to come and get it? And they say, well, can you come get it? Because I don't have anybody to bring it to you. And what they mean is, I don't have any available employees that I want to pay their time to go bring a computer to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're making money for their company, which means they know that time is valuable because they don't want to waste one of their guys to go bring you the computer.
Right.
So it's valid time for us to charge to go get the computer.
Sure. I agree with you.
Because I'm sending an employee to go do it. So that's an hour right there. So you can go through each entry of what you're billing time for. And if you want to knock off an hour, or if you want to defend the time and say, this is all valid time, don't be afraid to say, this is valid time. You called for this work. This is how long it took. This is what the bill is. And a lot of times they'll say, okay. Now, sometimes they may not, but that's an individual case, case by case basis. I've had to knock off some time where the customer was so irate for nothing when it was all valid time, and it just knocking off a half an hour made them happy.
Wow. Do you find that with most of your clients, you probably have one conversation like the one that you described, and once they understand how your billing process works, and then you don't hear from them again?
Yeah, usually if we had that conversation once, and it's not once for every client, that's for sure. If we do have it once, though, they usually won't bring it up again. Especially in the detail. That's why we put in the detail, 12 hours, actual time 12 hours, billing 7, or actual time 4 hours, billing 3. So they'll see it's already knocked off.
Yeah, that's a great thing to put in there.
And so if they because they get a bill for 7 hours, well, this didn't take 7 hours, but, that's why the tech has their entry. For every entry, they got a time assigned to it. And so, we tell them, when you close a work order, you just add up all the time and put that number. It don't matter what it is, you just put it, and that's when we review it.
So you review every invoice that goes out then?
Yes.
Gotcha. Smart. Yep. That's a smart thing to do.
That's also why we don't have technicians, the techs, collecting on site, because they're not really. It's not their job to bill the customers. Now, if you're a business owner, it's different. But if you have techs working for you, you don't want them going on collecting money for you.
Right.
You don't want them determining how much the customer is going to pay.
Mm-hmm. Wrong department.
But even if you're wrong department. It's not my department. But even if you're a business owner, they still have processes by which they have to go through to cut a check to you anyway. So.
Gotcha. Did you want to? Cool. All right. What else we got, Matt? Is that it?
Oh, sorry. I was actually out of work today. I was sick.
Sorry, I wasn't even looking at. I was looking at the notes.
My throat is dry.
What are you drinking? Emergency?
That is Diet Mountain Dew.
That's great. Definitely the elixir for a cold. The perfect elixir for a cold.
Doctor recommended.
All right.
Well, you have any questions about billing? Did I miss something? Maybe you might have a question about billing.
I don't have any off the top of my head. Lalo, if you could think of any, that'd be fine. I don't have any emails, by the way, either, and voicemails. I think everybody took the week off for the holidays from thinking.
Oh, one more. Yeah, that's true. One more thing: when you send your invoice, if you're sending invoices, make it clear. Net 15, net 30. If you don't put when the bill is due, they're gonna assume their own date.
Sure, definitely.
When I can pay it.
Yeah, when it's convenient for me, that's when they're going to pay it.
Yeah.
So definitely on your invoice, and most invoicing has that by default, but just make sure that it's there, because sometimes you can leave it off, but you want to put net 15, net 30, whatever your terms are, so they know.
Sure.
And if you're going to be charging any kind of late fees or penalties, that has to be upfront as well. So you can charge that stuff. If they're 90 days out, you can start charging penalties.
Exactly.
But they have before. And if somebody gets to be 90 days out or 60 days out, whatever it is you feel that's too far, it's happened to where we've had customers call with an emergency. My server's down, and we know who they are, but they may owe us $3,000. That's 90 days overdue.
Is that when you just kind of lean back and kick your feet up on the desk and say, "Oh, that sucks"?
Well, you tell them we'll be happy. I understand you have a bad situation. We'll be happy to send somebody out right away. We just need to clear up these past due invoices before we can do any work.
Right.
And they're like, well, how much is that? And then we tell them how much it is, and like, oh, let me call you back.
I can imagine that's always the pat answer.
Oh, and one more thing. This is for more of an etiquette kind of thing. Let's just say that an employee of the business is calling in. Okay, it's not a management, or it's not the person who cuts the checks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Bob is calling, server's down. Okay, now you want to have some kind of way to. You don't want to tell the employee of the company, "I can't come out because your company didn't pay their bill."
Right.
So if Bob calls with the server's down, I tell him, "Okay, we're gonna have somebody come out as soon as possible, but have so and so call me first."
Right. Because there's a situation.
Well, you don't have to tell them that.
Oh.
I mean, you can say, like, if we know our clients are small businesses. I know the owners or the office manager, so I can say, "Look, okay, Bob, I understand the server's down. Need you to have Dawn call me as soon as possible."
What happened to Mary?
A different company.
Okay.
Or maybe Dawn cuts the checks. I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just being goofy.
My head's not there today, Steve.
I'm just being.
I have a question. Do you take different forms of payment? Do you take checks, or what are the other things, the things that you offer as far as a client can pay you with?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Checks.
Yeah, we're not in the. I mean, could they pay with credit card if they wanted?
I don't offer that.
Okay.
I mean, we have it for home users because home users like credit cards, but all businesses have checks. I mean, some home users may have checking accounts where they have checks laying around, but businesses have checks. So have them use their checks.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you're using a credit card, you're losing some of that money to charges.
Right.
So, I don't mind doing that for a home user who's paying me $99, but if they owe me $3,000 and they want to pay me as quick as possible, I'm losing money on that because they want to pay real quick.
Sure.
That's a good
because
point.
they're so overdue. So, just a little etiquette, because we've had some issues before where a person has told somebody who's not in authority at the business that we can't come out because you're behind doing your payments.
Yeah, that's not good. You're right. It's not good.
So we've learned that because it's happened a few years ago. So now, the policy is just, have Dawn call me as soon as possible.
Right.
And when Dawn calls, then you explain to her, "I understand your server's down. I know this is, you'd like it back up as soon as possible, and we want to come out and help as soon as these past due invoices are cleared up."
Okay.
So not, more of that kind of tone than,
Right.
"I'm not coming till you pay me."
Right.
It's a little different tone, So just be careful of that kind of thing.
So if that server's down and I'm the client, if I don't have a check for you waiting at that door, then pretty much you're not coming. Is that correct?
Right. And so if I send a tech out there, I tell my tech, "Look, there should be a check for this much. So when you get there, go see Dawn. She should have a check for you."
Gotcha.
And if she doesn't, tell her you'll come back as soon as the check is ready. And if she has a problem with that, she can call and talk to one of the partners.
Uh-huh.
So that's how we work that.
It's good to just maintain good relations with your clients there.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen often because usually when that kind of thing happens, when we drop clients mainly because they're over demanding things and underpaying, or they just can't collect from them. So a lot of times if that kind of thing happened, it's been a continual problem of collecting from them, we'll get that big check when they have an issue. we'll fix that issue, and then we'll tell them we're done.
Cool.
So, we're going to back up and running. We'll send them an invoice for that. If it's a lot, we'll need a check for that as well. But then we tell them we're done.
Makes sense.
The best time to collect from people is when they have a problem.
I'll bet the necessity level is high.
And of course, we've lost clients for that. We've lost one particular client. We host their email. We have a server that we host hundreds of domains. And, we send them a monthly bill for their email and web hosting. And one client just got like 6 months back on paying that. They wouldn't take our calls. They weren't sending checks for it. We sent them a turn off letter saying if we don't get payment for this, your email is gonna be shut down. They didn't. They ignored that. So we cut their email off. Well, we got a call in 5 minutes for that. My email's down, and we said we know. We shut it off for non-payment. We talked to the office manager. You have outstanding invoice. You haven't paid for it for 6 months. Well, they brought a check to us. We said, well, turn it back on as soon as we get a check. And that's another thing. You need to have the check in hand. It's easy for them to say, oh, I sent the check. Well, how do I know you sent a check?
Right.
They can say, well, here's the check number. I don't know if that's a valid check number.
Right.
You can just be telling me something. Because we've had that issue too, where they say they send the check and we don't get it. And it takes months and months.
So it needs to be in hand.
And he drove over with the check, gave us a check. We turned the email back on. And we got a letter a week later saying they were switching their providers, which that's fine.
Totally fine. They're not going to pay you anyway, so let them not pay someone else.
Right. So when you're billing customers, don't be afraid to bill. Don't be afraid to bill. Businesses are used to getting bills. They get bills from every vendor that does work for them. You're just another vendor sending them a bill. As long as you think it's fair, you're not overcharging them, you should be fine.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. All right, Lalo, do you have any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, definitely, Matt. This is awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Let's let Matt get a swig of his his cold medicine there. And Matt, anything you want to say before we end off?
No, that's it. Hope everybody has a happy holidays.
Absolutely. Appreciate the show. Lalo, where can people find you?
LaloNunez.com. Like Matt was saying, charge by the hour, charge your time. Your what's in your brain, charge for it. And like he said, small businesses, even big corporations, all their vendors, they charge mostly by the hour. So stay away from flat fees for small businesses.
Yeah, these are great tips, and I think I hope you guys are going to take a lot away with this. I also want to say, thank you. Have a great holiday, everybody. This is probably, unless you tune in tomorrow, this may be the last time you hear from us before the holiday. There is going to be 2 shows tomorrow. We're doing Android App Addicts tomorrow at 10 and Nuts at Night at 11. So if you want to hang out with us for our special holiday episodes, actually there's nothing special. I just said that, but they're definitely episodes. Tune in tomorrow and we'll talk to you guys then. But that's going to be it for Podnutz Pro for this week. We will see you guys next week.